Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa nashhadu anna sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa baraka wa sallama tasliman kathira amma ba'd. Firstly, I would like to welcome all the brothers and sisters to this talk with regards to the objections and questions raised regarding Fadhail A'mal and its jawabs and its responses. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives me the tawfiq to convey this message clearly, and I also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives all the brothers and sisters the tawfiq to understand, and He gives them the tawfiq to act upon and implement whatever is said today. Ameen thumma ameen. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the institution, the brothers and sisters, for giving me the opportunity and giving me the platform to speak in front of you today. And whatever I say, if even one brother or sister changes their lives, if one brother or sister were to alter their perception of today's topic because of what I say today, then inshallah all the brothers and sisters who participated in hosting this event, in holding this event, it will also be a sadaqah jariyah for them. And as mentioned the hadith of Sahih Muslim, La yankusu min ujurihim shay'a, which means that every single person who participates in promoting good, every single person or individual who participated in changing people and in helping people to change their life, every single one of them will get the full 100% reward. It's not as though that the speaker or the lecturer will get the full reward and the ones who participated in putting the table out in front, they'll only get 10%, or the ones who have set the photography and the cameras, that they'll get 20%. No, every single individual will get their full 100% reward. So inshallah, we will also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He rewards the brothers and sisters who participated in today's event. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a source of your protection in this world and also success in the hereafter. Ameen thumma ameen. Now today's talk, as I already alluded to, is with regards to Fadhail A'mal. And Fadhail A'mal is a very famous book, a very famous kitab, which is used predominantly by brothers and sisters who are in the work of tabligh. I'm using the word predominantly because Fadhail A'mal can be used by any individuals or by any number of people. Even myself, I sometimes use the hadiths and some of the stories of Fadhail A'mal when it comes to delivering talks and lectures. So it's not something which is specific only with people who are in the work of tabligh, but predominantly it is a book which is used by them, and they normally do ta'aleem of this particular book after Zuhr prayer, after Asr prayer, where they will recite and read some hadiths and also the explanation given by the author Shaykh al-Hadith Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Delvi rahimahullah. So it's a very famous book. It is a book which is easily accessible and available. If you go to many masajids throughout the world, whether in the Arab world, even Africa, America, North America, Australia, Asia, you will always find a copy of Fadhail A'mal translated into its local language. So it's a very famous book and a very easily accessible book as well. Its hard copies can easily be found, and likewise its soft copies can also be found on the internet and on also various websites. Now, why is there a need to talk about this particular kitab and this particular book? The reason for its needs is over a number of years, many people have started objecting regarding the hadiths of Fadhail A'mal, regarding some of the stories which have been mentioned in Fadhail A'mal. And they have started labeling this particular book to be a book of fabrication, to be a book of tales. Even recently, in a trip in Bahrain, some brothers were even raising objections about Fadhail A'mal, about it being a book of stories and qissas and incidents which there are no basis to. And to tell the truth, we shouldn't really be surprised that people are raising objections about Fadhail A'mal, because I mentioned this hadith before as well to the brothers and sisters of this institution, that one of the signs of Day of Judgment is that every era or every century or generation after will be worse than what it was before. So if people are raising objections about Fadhail A'mal, then don't be surprised. And tell the truth, it's not a surprise anymore. Even now there are some people who raise objections about Sahih al-Bukhari. They say some hadiths in Sahih al-Bukhari are weak. And likewise, you will have a time which will definitely come when even so-called Muslims will raise objections about the Holy Quran itself. And I'm sure it's probably even evident now. But we shouldn't really be surprised. Why? Because this is all part and parcel of signs leading towards Day of Judgment. So today or now, it's Fadhail A'mal who are facing criticism and objections. Tomorrow it may be Sahih al-Bukhari, the day after it may be the Holy Quran. But what we as Muslims need to do is that whenever these objections are raised, we should try to answer those objections. We should try to be unbiased. Unbiased, very important. I will use this word quite a lot in today's lecture. That sometimes it happens that whenever we try to defend something, we are defending the undefensible. Like they're not supposed to be defended, but we still defend them. That is wrong. That is zulm. That is ta'assub. Ta'assub means that you're giving more preference to your clan or to your sect or to your group over the haqq and over the truth, and this is not allowed. If somebody has committed murder, you can't defend him, even though he's your brother, even though she's your sister, even though he's your father. If they committed haram, if they committed zulm, you can't defend the undefensible. But at the same time, what is the haqq and the truth, we have to say that. Because if we don't tell people the haqq and the truth, then people will think that those objections which have been raised regarding Fadhail A'mal are true, and then it'll start playing on their minds, thinking that, oh, this is a book which is made of tales, made of fabrication, we shouldn't be reading it, we shouldn't be acting upon it, we should not use it for ta'lim, we shouldn't use it for research. So we also have to tell people the haqq and the truth so that people are then able to make their own decisions. And again, I want today's talk and lecture not to be a policing lecture. What I mean by that is, I'm going to mention the objections and the answers in an unbiased way. But then at the end of the day, you brothers and sisters need to take this information and then in an unbiased way need to act upon what is being said. Brothers and sisters, you've already come to today's event and you've already made up your mind that Fadhail is a book of fabrication. Then today's lecture is going to be very difficult, because I will say something, but you've already made up your mind that this is a book of fabrication. You are not going to change. But if we come to this event and we've come with a clear mind, unbiased way, then inshallah, I'm sure every unbiased person, every clear-minded person will inshallah make the correct decision at the end of today's lecture. Now, before we start, first and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, to thank my teacher, Sheikh Abdul Rahim Limbada, Sahib Damat Barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him and his effort, because today's lecture are in reality the basis or the foundation are his work or his notes which he delivered at a program regarding Fadhail A'mal, which our institution hosted in Birmingham 6 or so months ago. So inshallah, the information which I will be delivering, likewise Brother Sharif, the handouts which he has given, most of the information are based on Sheikh's explanation which he gave a few months back. Now, before we go into the objections, firstly, I would like to say a few things regarding the author himself. Who is this Shaykh al-Hadith, Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Dalvi Rahimullah? Who is this person? So let me say a few things about his education and about the books he has written and compiled throughout his lifetime. Now, Sheikh, so when I say Sheikh, I'm referring to Shaykh al-Hadith Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Dalvi Rahimullah. So Sheikh was born on the 10th of Ramadan in 1315 Hijri. And again, most of the information is found in the handout in front of you. So he was born 1315 Hijri, which corresponds to the 12th of February 1898. So according to the Gregorian calendar, it corresponds to 1898, 12th of February. And he passed away on the 1st of Sha'ban in the year 1402. In the year 1402. So from an Islamic perspective, Shaykh subhanallah lived for 87 years. But obviously, because the lunar calendar is much quicker, if you go according to the Christian calendar, then Shaykh lived for approximately 84 years. 84 years. Shaykh graduated at the age of 19. And after he graduated, he spent time with his Shaykh and his teacher, Maulana Khalil Ahmad Sahranpuri. Maulana Khalil Ahmad Sahranpuri. So he spent in his company. And under his guidance, Maulana Khalil Ahmad Sahranpuri, as I'm sure you know, he wrote a very famous commentary called Badlul Majhood. Badlul Majhood, which is a commentary of Sunan Abu Dawud. It is a book which I kind of frequently use when it comes to giving lectures on hadith on Sunan Abu Dawud. So Maulana Khalil Ahmad Sahranpuri, he compiled this book, but most of the research was done by Shaykh al-Hadith Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Delvi Rahimullah. So he did the research, and then Maulana Khalid Ahmad Sarapuri then accordingly dictated to Shaykh that write this down, write this explanation down, and you then in turn have Badlul Majid. And in the year 1341 Hijri, at the age of 26, Hazrat Shaykh started teaching two very famous books of hadith in the Dars-e-Nizami system. They were Mishkatul Masabih and Sahih al-Bukhari. And subhanAllah, Shaykh taught Sahih al-Bukhari non-stop for 47 years. Subhanallah, again, it's very easier said than done, isn't it? You know, teaching for that many number of years non-stop. Yep. 47 years he taught continuously Sahih al-Bukhari. And for those who are alim al-deen who are sitting amongst us, they'll tell you that Sahih al-Bukhari is a very, tricky book. It's not just the hadiths. There's a lot of technicalities of Sahih al-Bukhari that only those who are teachers of hadith or students of hadith would be able to appreciate the technicalities. So as a Shaykh, he taught Sahih al-Bukhari for 47 years non-stop. And then afterwards, another great Shaykh in the name of Shaykh Yunus John Furi passed away last year, I think he was, or the year before. The year before he passed away. He then taught Sahih al-Bukhari after Hazrat Shaykh for another 50 years. So subhanAllah, great scholars, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses them to teach some very, very great books within the Muslim Ummah. And these were the two who, subhanAllah, for over a century taught the very famous Sahih al-Bukhari. Now, Shaykh al-Hadith, Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Delvi Rahimullah, he wrote many, many books. Besides Fadhail A'mal, he wrote many, many books. A lot of people, I think, misunderstand and they think that Shaykh just wrote this book on Fadhail and that's it. But actually, Shaykh wrote many, many technical books on hadith in particular throughout his lifetime. In particular, he wrote Awjazul Masalik, which is a book regarding the commentaries of Imam Malik's Muwatta. He also wrote Lami'ud Darari, which is a commentary of Sahih al-Bukhari. He also wrote and compiled Abwabut Tarajim. And again, for those who are not in the field of hadith, let me just briefly explain. Imam al-Bukhari Rahimullah, the Sahih al-Bukhari, Imam al-Bukhari Rahimullah, he is known as, or there's this paragraph or this sentence said about him, which is Fiqhul Bukhari fi Tarajimihi. Fiqhul Bukhari fi Tarajimihi. Which means that if you want to understand Imam Bukhari's fiqh understanding, then learn his chapters fi Tarajimihi. Chapters or titles means that, in Sahih al-Bukhari, before every hadith or every section of hadith, he has a chapter. Babu so and so, like Babul Wudu, Babul Tayammum. It's not as simple as that. He goes into more detailed analysis on the chapters. And subhanAllah, again, those who are students of hadith or who are alim al-deen, who are sitting in front of us, they'll tell you that sometimes Imam al-Bukhari Rahimullah in his chapters mentions some certain ajib, certain amazing and strange points that, as a teacher of Sahih al-Bukhari, even takes, my mind, it's like breathtaking. A lot of the things he says takes your mind away. at the amazing way he derives a point from the hadith. So this is what Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah was well known for. And as a Shaykh Muhammad Zakaria Khan rahimahullah, he's compiled a book which just totally focuses on the Tarjumatul Bab, on the chapters of Sahih al-Bukhari known as Abwab al-Tarajim. There's other books as well Hazrat Shaykh wrote, such as Kawkab al-Durri, which is a commentary of Sunan al-Tirmidhi, Khasa'il al-Nabawi, which is a commentary of Shama'il al-Tirmidhi. So in a nutshell, the point I want to make is that Shaykh didn't just write Fadhail A'mal, but he wrote many technical books, many amazing books of hadith, commentaries of hadith, where even Arab scholars have praised Shaykh for his work to the field of hadith. So when Arab scholars, non-Arab scholars as well, have respected his work, so first and foremost, for people to start questioning Shaykh's work and his legacy regarding Fadhail A'mal, then they are unfortunately misunderstood there, and they haven't really understood the caliber of work Shaykhul Hadith Mawlana Muhammad Zakaria Khan rahimahullah has done, and they haven't really appreciated his background. Because as I said before, if we are going to understand this topic properly, we have to be unbiased. So Shaykh compiling this book on Fadhail, he's not like a scholar like myself or a normal scholar, a normal alim who perhaps don't know Arabic or who don't know hadith well. Shaykh is an amazing scholar. He's a great muhaddith. Arab scholars, non-Arab scholars have respected him. So for people then to kind of raise objections about Shaykh's Fadhail A'mal, then that is something which is not correct and not right. It's not just Fadhail A'mal, but he actually has written or compiled many books of Fadhail. The first book, again, this is all in the notes which Brother Sharif has actually provided for you. So inshallah, I'm not going to go into too detail and so on. So the first book which he basically compiled was Fada'il al-Quran. Yeah, so Shaykhul Hadith, the first book which he compiled was what everyone Fada'il al-Quran. And it's mentioned that he started writing this book. On the 29th of Zulhijjah. In other words, he completed it within a month. Thereafterwards, the next book he wrote, his second book, was Fada'il Ramadan. Fada'il Ramadan. The third book, again, Brother Sharif has mentioned the times and the dates. I don't want to repeat that again. It's already written there. Plus, if I was to repeat it, then many of you perhaps would not remember or may forget the dates and the times. So that's already been mentioned by Brother Sharif. The third book which he compiled was Fadhail al-Tabligh. The fourth book which he then compiled was regarding Fadhail al-Salah, and thereafterwards the fourth book was Hikayatul Sahaba, not Fadhail al-Salah, Hikayatul Sahaba, stories about the companions. Then the book afterwards was Fadhail al-Salah, Fadhail al-Namaz. Thereafterwards he wrote Fadhail al-Dhikr. After Fadhail al-Dhikr, he then wrote Fadhail al-Hajj. Thereafterwards he then wrote Fadhail al-Zakat and Fadhail al-Sadaqat, and then he wrote and compiled Fadhail al-Durud Sharif. So all the list has been mentioned in front of you, and it's also in your own language as well, in Malay. So I'm sure all the brothers and sisters will be able to read that properly and thoroughly. Now, one of the things I'm sure Brother Sharif has mentioned in the handouts which he has given me is that most of these books on Fadhail, whether it's Fadhail Amal, Fada'il Quran, Fada'il Darul, most of these books of Fada'il which Shaykh has mentioned or has compiled, they were all written after he was given instructions, whether by his elders, whether by his uncle. After, when he was given instructions, only then he compiled it. He did not compile it before. And subhanAllah, from here we can understand, I just want to make this point, even though it's not really related to today's talk, but from here we can understand the importance of having a sheikh, a guide, or a teacher who is constantly supervising the murids, the disciples, the students. We can derive the importance of this, because now what happens is that soon as a student will graduate from Alim class program, without any guidance from the teachers, without any guidance from the elders, they'll just like open and start writing a book. Yeah, without any instructions, without any guidance. They write a book because obviously their ilm, their knowledge isn't stable, isn't strong. They write books on anything, and in that way they deviate people. Hence, Sallallahu said on the sign of Day of Judgment, فَأَفْتَوْا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ فَضَلُّوا وَأَضَلُّوا. It happens in different ways. It's not only through lectures, people are deviating people. Sometimes people who are not really qualified, or they may be qualified, but they haven't really spent time under the tutelage, under the guardian of, say for example, a sheikh. Then what happens is that they basically start misguiding individuals and misguiding people. So the point which I want to make everyone is that whenever we graduate, whenever we become, say, an imam, it's important that we spend some time with the sheikh, listen to our sheikh and our elders, listen to their guidelines, listen to what they have said, and basically according to those guidelines and these things, what we should do is that we should then compile and do what they inshallah instruct us to do. So I thought I'll just add that particular point on, that most of the books which Shaykh wrote on the Fada'il series, they were all written according to instructions given by his teachers and his elders. Now, after mentioning this point, before I go on to the objections, another thing we need to understand, that these books of Fadhail which Shaykh compiled, they are just Fadhail. In other words, his intentions were to get people closer towards Deen. You need to understand, you can't always be Nadeer. You can't always be threatening. You can't constantly warn people. You have to have a balance of Nadeer and Bashir. You need to also give glad tidings as well. You need to tell people of Fadhail that if you come to the masjid and pray, you will get this much reward. If you were to say to people that if you don't pray in the masjid, then this will happen, your houses will be burnt, as mentioned in the hadith, لَوْ حَبْرِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ بُيُوتَهُمْ. Then people don't listen, especially nowadays. People want to hear, yes, warnings, but they also want to hear Fadhail as well. If there are brothers and sisters who are not praying, then if you go and tell them that if you don't pray, you're going to go to hell, the likelihood is they're not going to listen to you. But if you tell them that, look, brother and sister, if you start praying, then inshallah, this is the reward you will get. You will get a more positive approach and a more positive kind of response back from them. So you need to understand that, yes, Shaykh when he came to books on hadith in particular, as I mentioned, the Kawkab al-Durri, the Awjaz al-Masalik, for those books of hadith, yes, he was like very stern. He said what was needed, and I'll explain this later. But when it came to the topic of Fadhail, you need to understand that these books of Fadhail, they were on Fadhail al-Quran, Fadhail al-Durud, Fadhail al-Dhikr, Fadhail al-Tabligh, Fadhail al-Sadaqat. These are things which we do every single day. Fadhail al-Salah, we do this every single day. So just to encourage people, brothers and sisters, to kind of like start praying, to encourage them to kind of remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to encourage them to start giving durood and salutation to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because of that reason, the books of Fada'il were then basically mentioned by or written or compiled by Shaykh al-Hadith Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Dalvi rahimahullah. So we need to understand that we can't always be strict and harsh. We have to also win the hearts of the people. We have to sometimes be gentle in our approach, especially nowadays. I would say the books of Fadhail are even more important. Because we live in a time that people don't like to be told harshly about things. When you go to people, you tell them, oh, you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. People don't like these things anymore, especially in this day and age. I'm not sure about here in Malaysia, but definitely in the UK, people don't like this approach of harshness. They like softness now. They like to be told of Fadhail. They don't want to be reminded of sins which they may have committed in the past. They don't want to be reminded of punishments they did or sins of the punishment which they may suffer in the past. So what I want to say to all the brothers and sisters who are here is that you need to understand that there has to be different approaches you need to have when it comes to conveying the message. When it comes to giving da'wah, you can't be harsh always, but you also have to be soft. You have to be gentle, and your approach has to be also of such that it's constantly giving glad tidings. Hence, we have the series of the books of Fadhail, which are, alhamdulillah, you have to, as I said, be unbiased. Alhamdulillah, many people have changed their lives because of Fadhail. Yeah, because of Fadhail Amal, because of Fadhail Tabligh, Fadhail Quran. Many people, I'm sure many people who are sitting here, they may have been motivated to come towards Deen because of Fadhail Amal. They sat in Ta'aleem, say after Salah, and they listened to one or two hadiths, and subhanAllah, they've changed their lives. I know a lot of brothers back in the UK, back in Birmingham, they were clean shaved, they did not used to pray, they used to be alcoholics, gamblers, but subhanAllah, they came, Allah gave them tawfiq to come for Salah one day. After Salah, they hear a brother say a few hadiths from Fadhail Amal, and because of that, subhanAllah, such brothers, they changed their entire life and they gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So inshallah, the point I was trying to make is that you always can't have a strict, harsh approach. There has to be also softness as well to gain the ummah closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, after mentioning the kind of like introductory parts of Fadhail Amal, about the author, about, in a way, the purpose of why the book of Fadhail were mentioned or written or compiled. Also at the same time, I also mentioned that the Shaykh is no kind of like ordinary individual when it comes to the science of hadith, but rather he's actually someone who's very well respected in the Arab world, in the non-Arab world, for his insight, depth of hadith and hadith understanding. After mentioning this part, we're now going to move on to the second part of today's talk, and that is the objections. What are the objections? Now, after listening and reading through my teacher Sheikh Abdul Rahim Limbada Saab's work, and also listening to some other lectures, and obviously listening to brothers and sisters who constantly raise objections, and some of the objections can be found on internet sites, on blogs, or even on the comments section below a YouTube video, we can compile, or we can say that there are 6 major or 6 main objections regarding Fadhail A'mal. Okay? Like, obviously there may be objections regarding hadiths, but we could put that into one main topic. So the first objection to mention, which I think this is the very first objection people have, is that are the hadiths in Fadhail A'mal authentic or not? They always use that objection first, that the hadiths of Fadhail A'mal, are they sahih or not? Are they authentic or not? Now, what do we mean by authenticity? What do we mean by sahih? Because sahih, by the way, it's not our customary meaning of sahih or authentic. Because I think the problem is, and again this happens when people who haven't studied their deen properly, they look at the word sahih and they look into the dictionary and they see sahih means something like true. And they think that, oh, the hadiths of Fadhail A'mal, does it have to be sahih, does it have to be true? Actually, the meaning of sahih from a usul hadith perspective is different to the customary meaning of sahih. Because Fadhail A'mal, when people say about the hadiths, are they sahih or not? What do we mean by sahih? So if we open up, say, Taysir Mustalah Hadith, or any usul book of hadith, whether it's Bayquniya, they tell us that for a hadith to be sahih, you need to have the following conditions. They are: number 1 is that the rawi or the narrator has to be a Muslim. I think you need to press the play, the record button. Yeah. So the first condition is that he has to be a Muslim. That is the first condition. For a hadith to be sahih, he has to be a Muslim. Number 2, the second condition is that he has to be reliable, thiqah. He has to be reliable. The third condition is that he has to be adil. He has to be righteous. Number 4, the fourth condition is that he has to be tamud dhabt. Fourth condition is he has to be tamud dhabt, which means that this narrator's level of preserving the hadith, memorizing the hadith, understanding the hadith, needs to be what? Of a very high level. We call this in Arabic tamud dhabt. And the fifth condition is that the hadith cannot be rare, ghair shudud, it cannot be rare. And the sixth condition is there can't be any defect. Again, what I mean by defect, I don't mean there's something wrong with the hadith per se. What we mean in terms of the rawi, say, for example, living in 2 different eras, and then they are saying that he has narrated from so and so, like tadlis we call it. So the hadith can't be ghair illa, it can't have any defect whatsoever. So these are what we call 6 conditions which needs to be found for a hadith to be sahih. Now remember, brothers and sisters, just because a hadith isn't classed or graded as sahih doesn't mean that the hadith is discarded. And this is the problem which we have in society now, is that anything which is not in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, people just discard. People think, oh, it's not even a hadith, na'udhu. There are so many grades of hadith. Yes, Sahih li'aynihi, Sahih li'ghayrihi. But besides that, you have other grades of hadith, like Hasan li'aynihi, Hasan li'ghayrihi. You also have hadiths which are da'if. But you know, hadiths which are da'if doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. It just means that, look, a hadith which is da'if, yes, the narrator is going to be a Muslim. The narrator is going to be adil, because all Sahabas are considered to be adil and righteous. The tabi'in's going to be considered to be adil. But perhaps in terms of their reliability, or in terms of their tamud dhabt, in other words, they're not the very high level of rawis and narrators. In terms of their preservation is not as what? Strong. Then yes, they are reduced in that, if that makes sense. So fair enough, we will class the hadith to be da'if. But it doesn't mean that we totally disregard what they say. It's like, say for example, you have an alim saying something, a hadith, and you have that same hadith being said by a non-alim. Now don't get me wrong, the non-alim who is quoting the hadith, he must know the hadith as well, but perhaps he didn't say the information of the hadith fully 100%, but he got 90% correct. Whereas the alim, he said that hadith fully 100%. So now just because the non-alim who narrated the hadith, he didn't say the hadith word for word, but he got the context of the hadith communicated, 90% of it people understood, then we still accept the information which he has given. So likewise, when it comes to da'if narrations, remember with da'if narrations, it's not totally disregarding whatsoever, but rather Imam Nawawi rahimahullah has said that when it comes to weak hadiths in the topic of Fada'il, you are able to act upon. You know, Imam Bayhaqi has also said the same as well, and likewise Imam Ahmad has said the same. That is that when an issue is relating to halal or haram, so if you have an issue which is a mas'ala which is relating to halal or haram, then we are strict, tashaddadna. We are strict, in other words, we look through the narration of the hadith. We rigorously look at the sanad and the chain of the hadith. But when it comes to Fada'il, tasahalna. Tasahalna means that we are lenient. So if, say for example, there are some weak hadiths, remember weak not in terms of the information, but perhaps the standard of it, then we still accept it, we still allow it, it's still considered to be accepted and valid. Tasahalna, because the muhaddithin, they are very lenient and very flexible when it comes to weak hadiths and acting upon Fada'il when it comes towards that. Look, it's like, say for example, you know, you have say a beautiful masjid, a beautiful, strong, purpose-built masjid, and then you have another musalla. But whichever masjid you pray your salah in, whether it's in the beautiful, purpose-built masjid, your salah will be done. And likewise, if you were to pray your salah in a musalla, your salah will be done. So think of da'if hadith. I'm just giving you a parable here. Think of da'if hadith to be in this way, that don't think the information of da'if hadith is wrong. It isn't. This is what a lot of people think, that da'if hadith, the information is wrong. It isn't. But rather, it's 90% or the mafhum means the purpose or the aim of that hadith is valid, is correct. Which, say for example, other authentic hadiths may not say the same words, but the meaning of it can be found in other authentic hadiths. Like, let me give you an example. It's like the hadith is about praying salah in jama'ah, in congregation. So if you look at, say, Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, they have certain standards of hadiths about the Fada'il and the virtues of praying Salah in congregation. You know, like 25 times more reward, 27 times more reward. But that same importance of praying Salah in congregation can be found in other books like in Mishkat, like in Abu Dawood, in Tirmidhi, which says and illustrates the same point about you need to pray Salah in Jama'ah. There's that hadith in Tirmidhi where he says that those who pray Salah in Jama'ah for 40 days, that what happens? They are free from two, or exonerated from two things. So the point I'm trying to make, everyone, is that when you look at each topic of the Sharia, you will find the authentic hadiths in Bukhari and in Muslim, but also those same meanings from those hadiths in Bukhari and Muslim can be found in the weaker hadiths as well. Doesn't mean that the weaker hadiths we totally disregard, but rather we're using the authentic hadiths in Bukhari and Muslim to kind of help support the weaker hadiths. So that's why when you look at all the hadiths in most of the Fadhail books, whether it's Fadhail A'mal, Fadhail Quran, about the virtues of reciting Quran, you know what? Those very same hadiths, not the exact same in terms of word for word, but its meanings can be found in Sahih Bukhari, and its meanings can be found in Sahih Muslim as well. So this kind of notion that Fadhail A'mal hadiths or hadiths in terms of Fadhail, which are weak hadiths, we have to totally disregard, and we have to totally kind of like ignore and reject, then that is totally incorrect, and that is something totally which is not true whatsoever. A beautiful example which one of my teachers, Sheikh Abdul Rahim Saab, gave, he said that think of Fadhail hadiths or weak hadiths, to be like a sick or an ill person. In our community, we have many people who are sick and ill. We have many disabled people in our community. So what do we do with disabled people? Let's take an example of disabled people. What we do is that we care for them. We have lifts for them. We have disabled ramps where they could, like, somebody can take their wheelchair. So we have, alhamdulillah, easiness for them. Likewise, think of weak hadiths to be like weak, like they're a bit frail, but then we're using the stronger hadiths from Bukhari and Muslim to support them. So we don't disregard them, even like weak members of our society, disabled people. We don't ignore them. We don't do anything for them. No, what we do is that we kind of like help them, assist them by making things easy for them. So inshallah, this is what we do with weak hadiths. That is that we use the authentic hadiths to kind of support and assist it. So in a nutshell, the answer to the first objection, are there weak hadiths in Fadhail A'mal? The answer is yes, there are weak hadiths in Fadhail A'mal. Yeah, like people who read that book, I don't think so any of them have ever said Fadhail A'mal does not contain weak hadiths. There are weak hadiths in Fadhail A'mal. But also at the same time, in Fadhail A'mal, there are also authentic hadiths as well. In Fadhail A'mal, there are hadiths from Bukhari and from Muslim. There are hadiths just from Sahih al-Bukhari. There are hadiths just from Sahih Muslim. And there are also hadiths which are Hasan graded, i.e. from Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Bayhaqi, and so on. So are there weak hadiths in Fadhail A'mal? The answer is yes. No one has ever said there aren't weak hadiths in Fadhail A'mal. No one has ever proclaimed or advertised or marketed Fadhail A'mal to be a hadith book on the level of Sahihain, on the level of Bukhari Muslim. No one has said that. We all accept there are weak hadiths in Fadhail A'mal, but weak hadiths can be acted upon when it comes to Fadhail and when it comes to virtues. So alhamdulillah, That's the first objection and the answer. The second objection which people have regarding Fadhail A'mal is that there are fabricated hadiths in Fadhail A'mal. I'm sure you've heard this objection quite frequently. That in Fadhail A'mal there are fabricated hadiths, mawdu' hadiths. One is weak, but I've already explained to you what we mean by weakness. Then there's another term which is mawdu'. Now mawdu' means proper fabricated, like, in other words, it's like being totally made up by people. Fabricated hadiths. So some say that in Fadhail A'mal there are fabricated hadiths. The answer is no. The answer is no. There aren't any fabricated hadiths in Fadhail A'mal. And those people who are going around and saying that there are fabricated hadiths in Fadhail A'mal, the simple answer is that they are making an accusation and they are committing a buhtan. They are making a slander against Hazrat Shaykh Maulana Zakaria Kandalwi rahimullah by saying that he has compiled in his Fadhail A'mal fabricated hadiths. Now, why then? Now you may be thinking, okay, people would not have objected unless there must be some hadiths which are fabricated, because there's that saying we have in English that there is no smoke without fire. In other words, that if there's fire, there must be smoke. So if people are saying, oh, they are fabricated hadiths in Fadhail A'mal, there must be some element of truth, isn't there? So the answer is no. What you probably noticed in Fadhail A'mal is after each hadith, Shaykh does a reference. Shaykh does a reference. And in this reference, he mentions, like for example, it could be Rawahul Bayhaqi fi Sunanihi, Rawahul Hakim fil Mustadrak. And at the same time, he mentions, subhanallah, certain muhaddithin, certain, not all, certain muhaddithin who have considered that hadith to be fabricated. You need to understand, muhaddithin are like scholars. Scholars have different temperaments. Look, everybody knows about Umar radiallahu anhu. What was Umar radiallahu anhu's solution to everything? Da'ni, adriba unuka hazal munafiq. Like, Hazrat Umar was very harsh. Like, any issues, O Prophet of Allah, allow me to chop this munafiq's neck off. His way of dealing with issues was to go for killing. Other Sahabas, their temperament was different. They were very soft, but some were very strict. Na'udhu doesn't make Umar radiallahu anhu a bad person, it's just the way he is. I'm sure there are many scholars who you have met that some are very strict, even in their fatwas they're very strict, and some scholars are very lenient. Obviously we as scholars or imams, we should try to be moderate, but sometimes we'll be a bit strict on certain fatwas, sometimes we may be a bit lenient. Now likewise with the muhaddithin, you have certain muhaddithin who were strict when it came to what is considered to be a sahih hadith, what is considered to be hasan, what is considered to be weak, and what is considered to be a fabrication. And some muhaddithin, or not some, but the overwhelming majority, they were alhamdulillah moderate, and they were very unbiased when it came to the narrating of hadith. Now the point I want to make is that there is a muhaddith, a very famous one, whose name is Ibn Jawzi. Ibn Jawzi rahimahullah. And Ibn Jawzi is basically known to be like a strict muhaddith. Ibn Jawzi, I'm not sure whether you know, but he actually considered or has classed 33 hadiths from Sunan Ibn Majah to be a fabrication, to be fabricated. The Sunan Ibn Majah, which is one of the 6 authentic books of hadith, from Sunan Ibn Majah, Ibn Jawzi has considered 33 to be a fabrication. But Imam Suyuti rahimullah say on the other hand, he's considered those 33 to be Hasan, or the very least weak. So can you see the muhaddithins had their own various, what we call grading of the hadith. What is weak, what is mawdu, what is Hasan. They had their own principles, which obviously I don't have time to get into. Hafiz bin Hajar rahimullah had his own principles. So do you know where it says, or where those people say that there are fabricated hadiths in Fadhail A'mal? What in fact has happened is that, you know, at the end of each hadith, Shaykh does a reference. And in the reference, he may have quoted Ibn Jawzi has said this is fabricated. He hasn't said the entire hadith is fabricated, he just quoted Ibn Jawzi's opinion. And what people have done is that they've just taken that sentence of mawdu of Ibn Jawzi and say, oh yeah, this hadith is mawdu and this hadith is fabricated. But subhanAllah, we should actually applaud Hazrat Shaykh here. Look how unbiased he is when mentioning the hadith. Because look, if Hazrat Shaykh was biased, like if he had a hidden agenda, would he quote in that same book, by the way, Ibn Jawzi said this is a fabricated hadith? No, look, I'm giving a talk or a lecture to all you brothers and sisters. Now, if I had a hidden agenda means that if I wanted all of you to follow a particular way, and I'm mentioning hadiths, would I then also mention, oh by the way, this hadith is fabricated? No, I won't say that. Why? Because I'll just make it as though that it's a authentic hadith, so that everybody believes in what I am saying. Subhanallah, Hazrat Shaykh, when he would mention the hadith, he wasn't unbiased, he didn't have a hidden agenda that, oh, I want everyone to, discreetly act upon this hadith or be brainwashed by this hadith or anything, but rather he was fair and unbiased. He quoted the hadith, but if the hadith was, say for example, considered to be fabricated by certain muhaddithin, with all due respect, he would then mention the reference of that particular hadith. If they were weak, he would mention that they were weak. If they were authentic, he would mention that they are authentic. SubhanAllah. So this actually, tells us the trustworthiness of Hazrat Shaykh Maulana Zakaria Kandil rahimullah, that those hadiths or those places where the Shaykh or some shuyukh or some muhaddithin have said that they are fabricated, he honestly has given an honest appraisal of it and is given an honest reference to it. So going back to the second objection again, in a nutshell, are there fabricated hadiths in Fadhail A'mal? The answer is no. There isn't a single fabricated hadith, and when it does mention that, oh, this hadith is fabricated in Fadhail A'mal, then the simple answer is that you are actually, or those people are actually just referencing a muhaddith who has said that it is fabricated, and Hazrat Shaykh, out of his unbiasedness, out of his trustworthiness, out of his fairness, has then mentioned the unbiased opinion of that Shaykh, and he said that, look, so and so has said it to be fabricated, but the overwhelming majority have considered it to be either da'if or either have considered it to be accepted. So alhamdulillah, that is the second objection. The third objection which people have regarding Fadhail A'mal are regarding some of its stories. There are many stories in Fadhail A'mal or in the series of Fadhail, and many of them kind of use this story of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, which is mentioned in Fadhail A'mal. As I'm sure all of you know, that Imam Abu Hanifa, he had something called kashf, and I'm sure you probably know that whenever people would do wudu, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah would see sins, people's sins falling off their body, because there's the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari also that the Fadhail of wudu, that when you wash your face, what happens? When the water is dropping from your face, sins are also dropping from your face as well. خَرَجَتْ خَطَايَاهُ مِنْ وَجْهِهِ. When he's washing his hands, his fingers, his nose, his ears, his feet, خَرَجَتْ خَطَايَاهُ مِنْ رِجْلِهِ. From his feet, sins are falling off. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimullah had something called kashf. Yeah, he was able to see that sin that person, subhanallah, had committed, which was falling off his body at the time when he was performing wudu. And this is one of the reasons why Imam Abu Hanifa's original opinion was that Maya Musta'mal means used water, was considered to be najas. In the Hanafi fiqh, it's considered to be najas. I'm not sure in the Shafi fiqh, because I know one of the brothers and sisters here are all Shafis. But in the Hanafi fiqh, original opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa was that it's najas. But later on, the fatwa is on Imam Muhammad's opinion, and that is that my musta'mal is tuahir lakin ghair mutahhir. That it's pure, but it doesn't make you purified. Anyway, this is a fiqh masla, just mentioning. But Imam Abu Hanifa, he used to have kashf, he used to see sins falling off people's bodies when they would perform wudu. So some people have objected and said, oh look, this is shirk. This is shirk. Having kashf is considered to be shirk according to some. They say now, how can Imam Abu Hanifa see sins falling off people's body? This is shirk and this is kufr. Now what I want to say to all the brothers and sisters is, having kashf is not shirk. Kashf, for those who perhaps don't know what it means, is that you're able, like, you know, the veil. Kashf linguistically means to expose. So we have this veil of this world in front of us. Not physical veil, but it's like a veil of this world. And now and then, not always, now and then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for his prophets and likewise for his pious servants, he reveals the veil. He takes off the veil, that you are then able to see the reality of something which is happening somewhere else. There's a hadith of Sunan Abu Dawud, also of Sahih al-Bukhari as well. I'm sure everybody's aware of the hadith. That once Prophet ﷺ was passing by a grave. What did he hear from the grave? He heard some screams, didn't he? He heard that the two dwellers of the grave were being punished. How did Prophet ﷺ hear that? Because I'm sure all of you know about the hadiths of Ithbatu Adhab Qabr, is, you know, the punishment of the grave. All the Baha'ims, Lasami'at al-Baha'im, all the animals can hear it, illa thaqalayn, except humans and jinnats. Besides human and jinnat, no one can hear the punishment of the grave. That's why it's mentioned in the hadith of Sahih Muslim, that if Allah had made the humans hear the punishment of the grave, no one would have buried their deceased in the grave anymore. Because they would have been scared, oh, what's going to happen if we bury our father or mother in the grave? They would have gone into cremation. They would have cremated that body. Anyway, Prophet ﷺ was able to hear the punishment of the grave. How was he able to do that? It was through kashf. Because Allah opened up the veil of this world and he was seeing that there were two individuals who were being punished in the grave, and the two individuals were someone who used to tell tales, Nammam, and the other person who did not refrain from urine. He didn't refrain from urine when he used to do istinja. Urine was everywhere. Because of that reason he was getting punished. And the second person was someone who used to tell tales, Nammam. So how was Prophet ﷺ able to determine somebody was being punished? It was through kashf. Another example. This happened in the 7th year of Hijri in a battle called the Battle of Muta. The Battle of Muta. Now what happened in the Battle of Muta? Muta is in a place in Sham. Prophet ﷺ was in Medina Munawwara. He was where? In Medina Munawwara. And the veil of this world opened up. The veil of this world opened. And Prophet ﷺ was able to see what was happening in this field during the Battle of Muta. And Prophet ﷺ was giving a running commentary, a running explanation of what was happening in the battle to the Sahabas who were there in Medina Munawwara. And Prophet ﷺ said that, look, Hazrat Ja'far radiallahu ta'ala anh has been martyred. Zayd bin Haritha radiallahu ta'ala anhu has been martyred. Abdullah bin Rawaha radiallahu ta'ala anhu has been martyred. So Prophet ﷺ was giving a running explanation of it. How did that all happen? The kash, the veil of this world opened up and he was able to see them. Not only did Rasulullah ﷺ have kash, but the companions also had kash as well. It's mentioned that Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu told Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha that his other wife, so not Ruman, but his other wife, which was Hazrat Asma bint Umays, that Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu said to Hazrat Aisha that my wife Asma is pregnant and she is going to give birth to a girl. She's going to give birth to a girl. And it so happened that Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu had a child later and she was a girl. So how did Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala know this? He knew this because Allah had opened the veil of this world. And I'm sure all of you know this story of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the Sariyah story. So once Umar radiallahu ta'ala, during his khilafat, he was standing on the minbar, he was giving a khutbah. Whilst giving a khutbah, he all of a sudden starts bellowing out, Ya Sariyah al-Jabal al-Jabal. Sariyah was the name of a companion. That, oh Sariyah, stick to the mountain, stick to the mountain. Do you know what happened? What happened was that Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he sent a expedition where Sariyah was Sariyah is somebody's name, he was the leader of this expedition. So now once Umar radiallahu ta'ala was delivering the Friday khutbah, the veil opened up, the kash, he had kash. The veil of this world opened up and he was seeing what was happening in this battlefield. So he then called out, O Sariyah, you've got enemies coming after you, go and take refuge near to the mountains. And this so happened that Sariyah heard these words, even though Umar radiallahu anhu was in Medina Munawwara giving a lecture and a khutbah, and Sariyah was in another foreign land. But he was able to hear that and he was able to kind of go to the part of the mountain to seek refuge. So brothers and sisters, we call this kash. So going back to the third objection, people say that, oh, in Fadhail A'mal there are stories of what's going to happen in the future, and the story of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah being able to see people's sins. You need to tell these brothers and sisters that this is considered to be kash, and kash is a form of ilham, is a form of a spiritual revelation. Obviously we don't have wahi anymore, but those who are non-prophets, they get ilham, they get kash. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may sometimes expose certain things for people, and this is something which is widely accepted. The prophets had kash, the Sayyidah Maryam radiallahu ta'ala had kash, the mother of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam had kash, didn't she? Ilham, to kind of put Musa alayhi salatu wasalam into the cradle and to placing on the river Nile. So this is something which is widely accepted in the Quran, in the Hadith, of companions and Sahabas having kashf. So therefore, without any doubt whatsoever, we shouldn't kind of like look at those stories and think of it to be baseless, because these stories are based on kashf, and kashf is something which is considered to be like acceptable in the Sharia. Obviously, one thing I can say about kashf, just as an additional point, is that it's not hujjat on somebody else. So in other words, if I have kashf now, or I have ilham now, I should act upon it, but it doesn't make it necessary that you have to act upon it. Okay, because then everybody would say, oh, I've got kashf that you should do this, you should do that, and you're just gonna confuse people. It's just you act upon it yourself and not others. So that is like, alhamdulillah, the third objection. The fourth objection to mention here is regarding stories. A lot of people have objection regarding stories. They'll say that, oh, why are there stories in Fadhail Amal? That's like an objection, like, why the stories? Now, one thing to remember, everyone, that the stories which are in Fadhail Amal, they are not stories which Hazrat Shaykh Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Dalwi Rahimullah made up himself. But this is what a lot of people say. They say, oh, all the stories, they're just made up stories. Hocus pocus stories. Asatir al-Awwali, tales of the earlier years. So, the thing is that the stories which are in Fadhail Amal, they are not made up stories by Hazrat Shaykh Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Khan Dalwi Rahimullah. In fact, the stories which are in Fadhail Amal have been derived from the following two books. From the following two books. Brothers and sisters who are making notes, I think it will be advisable if you jot the names of the two books down. They are Rawdatul Riyahin. Rawdatul Riyahin Fi Hikayati Salihin. So Rawdatul Riyahin Fi Hikayati Salihin, written by Abu Abdullah al-Yafi' al-Yamani. Written by Abu Abdullah al-Yafi' al-Yamani. And the second source, or the second place where these stories in Fada'il A'mal have been derived from are from Imam Ghazali's Ihya'ul Ulum. Imam Ghazali's Ihya'ul Ulum. So the point I want to make here is, you know, the stories which Hazrat Shaykh has mentioned in Fadhail Amal, they are not his own personal stories. But this is what a lot of people think. They think, oh, he's just making up stories. They're not. They're actually from these two books. Imam Ghazali's book, I think everybody knows Imam Ghazali's book, Ihya'ul Ulum. I think everybody may have a copy of that, perhaps here, or if not at home. And the second place where the stories can be found is in Rawdatul Riyahin Fi Hikayati Salihin, written by the Shaykh Imam Abu Abdullah al-Yafi' al-Yamani. Also at the same time, stories are something which does not even have to be scrutinized. I don't know why people even raise this as an objection to the truth. Stories, they're not like hadiths, are they? Come on, no one is saying stories are like hadiths. You don't have to scrutinize scrutinize stories like the way you scrutinize hadiths. Yes, if it's a hadith, scrutinize it. Is it sahih? Is it da'if? Is it mawdu'? Is it hasan? Is it hasan li ghayrihi? Hasan li aynihi? But when it comes to stories, you don't even have to scrutinize it. Yeah? As long as the stories have a good meaning, as long as the stories basically have a good purpose, then there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to basically scrutinize stories in such detail. the great Imam Junaid al-Baghdadi. Junaid al-Baghdadi, a very famous scholar, a very famous Sufi as well. He has said that stories are, or is an army, stories is an army from amongst the armies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Stories is an army or an army from the armies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that whenever we say stories, as long as obviously it has to be true, and even if it's not true, and even if it's fictional, just imagine the story is fictional. Picture meaning like made up. As long as it's got a gentle meaning towards it, then fala bas. There's nothing wrong in using it. Like, I'm not sure what kind of syllabus you perhaps have for students in Islamic schools. But in the UK we have various kind of like books or syllabuses, and Nasiha publication or Tasil series from South Africa or Suffolk books from the UK, and they have many stories there written by good scholars. They are fictional stories, so they're not really true, but you know, it's about teenagers, it's about a brother, it's about a sister, it's about modesty, it's about haya, which has got a nice meaning towards it. They're not really real stories, but it's got a gentle point, it's got a nice moral towards it. So everybody does that. You know, we always use stories. You know, normally during the weekdays, as Brother Sharif will know, I have a very tight schedule, so Monday to Friday I'm always very busy. But on the weekend, where I have a bit more time, I put my daughters to sleep. So when I put them to sleep, I tell them a story. Most of the stories I tell them is fiction, but it has a moral regarding it. It has a moral, meaning that you should always tell the truth, not to lie, you should be just, you should be kind, you should be gentle, you should be sincere, you should be generous. So I normally tell these types of stories. They're all fictional stories. So the point I'm trying to make is that, first and foremost, I'm not saying, as the Sheikh has mentioned, fictional stories in Fadhail Amal. They're actually from those two books. But even if they are fictional, then there shouldn't be any problems whatsoever, as long as the meaning of the story is good. And subhanAllah, you know, a lot of the Holy Quran, well, not a lot, but there are many places in the Holy Quran where you have stories. The story of Ashab al-Kahf, that's a story. Yes, I know it's true, but if you look at a lot of the information which have been mentioned, not in the Quran, but externally given by the Mufassirin, most of them are all historian based, where you can't really say that they are really authentic. So the point I'm trying to make is that there are stories in the Quran, there are stories of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam in the Quran, the people of the cave, and other story, Habib al-Najjar story. So alhamdulillah, there are many, many stories in the Quran. So likewise, in Fadhail Amal, there are many stories. But the key thing is that as a Sheikh has not kind of, as I said before, has not made up these kind of like stories whatsoever. But what he has actually done is that he's kind of mentioned these stories with the intention so that people get motivated. You know, like one of the things about stories is that, you know, everybody likes listening to stories, yeah? We always like listening to Surah Yusuf. We always like listening to the people of the cave. Why? Because the stories are nice. So as long as the meaning of the story is good and there's nothing, you know, like vulgar, and there's nothing kind of like bad you're saying, alhamdulillah, it's actually something good, and it actually opens people's heart to come near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So alhamdulillah, going back to the fourth objection now, are there stories in the Fadhail Amal? The answer is yes. But these stories have been mentioned from Rawdatul Riyaheen or from Imam Ghazali's Ihya al-Ulum, and also at the same time we shouldn't be strict in scrutinizing the stories. They are not like hadith books. as long as the meaning is good, then alhamdulillah they are accepted. 2 more objections left, inshallah. Objection number 5 is some people have said that there is a story in Fadhail Amal or in the Fada'il Darul Sharif section. There's a story in the Fada'il Darul Sharif section, which is a very, very unthinkable thing. So it's actually a story in Fada'il Darul Sharif written by as a chef, where people say that this is a total fabrication and it doesn't even make sense. This is what people say. I'm going to tell you the story. The story in Fadhail Darul Sharif says that there was once a father and son. The father and son. And the father had passed away. The father had passed away. Now, what happened was that the father and son, they were sleeping together. Let me explain in a different way. They were sleeping together. And the son had a dream. He had a dream that his father had passed away. Remember, his father was sleeping next to him, but the son had a dream that his father had just passed away. And because his father was sinful, his father's face had turned black. His father's face had turned black. So the Quran is when those who do evil, their faces will be black in the hereafter. So his father's face had turned black because of the sin. All of a sudden, the son woke up and he finds what he saw in the dream. That his father, wallahi, had passed away, and that his father's face had turned black. Yeah, he sees that. Now, the son's so worried that my father's face had turned black, he was sinful, people are going to find out that my father was a bad person. So the son became very, very anxious and very, very worried. All of a sudden, a illuminated face appears. All of a sudden, an illuminated face appears. And this face then wipes his hands over his father's face, and the darkness goes away. So all of a sudden, like an illuminated person appears, he wipes his hands over his father's face, and the darkness on his father's face goes away. So the son was shocked, and he's asking this person, this illuminated person, "Who are you?" So that person replied by saying, "I am the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I am Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I have removed the darkness from your father's face." Why? Because he used to recite Darul Sharif. Because he recites Durud and salutation, that's why I have removed the darkness from your father's face. So this story is mentioned in Fadhail Darul Sharif. Now a lot of people have read this story and think, what kind of story is this? You know, how can you have a person just appearing like that? Now, first and foremost, these types of objections happen because we've lost our connection with deen, with spirituality. And we've now gone more into dunya and to materialistic things. When we go into dunya and into materialistic things and we lose our trust, we lose our tawakkul in Allah, then you know what? Everything has to be what? Like objective. We have to see things. Like, we have to have a mic, otherwise the sisters behind won't be able to hear. But we don't need to have a mic. But we have to have this. We have to have cameras. We have to have tables in front of us. We have to see things. Otherwise, we don't believe. Yeah, that's the reality. But subhanAllah, if we had tawakkul and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then do you know what? A lot of miracles can happen. A lot of things can happen. But because our tawakkul level has dropped, that's why many of these stories we don't believe it anymore. Because our connections spiritually are very, very weak, we don't believe in it. Many of the brothers who are here, as Brother Sharif was telling me, that alhamdulillah you have done bay'ah with the Sheikh. So you are on the path of tasawwuf and tazkiyah. So your spirituality level will be stronger. So yes, you will believe in these stories. Not only would you believe in these stories, but subhanAllah, I'm sure you witnessed these amazing things in your own life. But the people who haven't witnessed these things, or who are not strong spiritually, then yes, these types of stories, they won't believe whatsoever. They won't believe whatsoever. But obviously, if you have trust in Allah, then what happens is that you believe in these stories and you know that it is possible. Even in this day and age, in 2018, 2019, we live in, we will believe in these stories much if our trust in Allah had increased and if we were more spiritually connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Brother Sharif will know that I've said this many times about our institution, the brochure which you have in front of you, Darul. SubhanAllah, do you know when we start, even now as well, a lot of people question that, Mufti Saab, like, how is this institution, Darul, running? Because there's so much cost. I'm sure everybody knows when you run an institution, there's so many costs. There's so many teachers, so many salaries you have to pay, so much costs involved. So a lot of people say this, that, especially at the beginning when we started, like, how do you manage to pay for all this? Like the rent, the bills, the salary, the wages, other costs which are involved. How do you manage to do that when you don't have that many students, when you don't have that many classes running? And I say to them, subhanAllah, you know what, this is all down to Allah. Because we have trust in Allah. And when we have trust in Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always make things happen for us. And I'll give you, I think I mentioned this story before as well, but I'm just mentioning just so that, just to tell everyone, even for yourselves as well, that I know you have this institution here, sometimes you may find it difficult to pay the rent or to pay for bills, and you may get worried, but subhanAllah, if you have trust in Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always open doors. Now, when Darul started in 2013, this was in the first year, there was 1 month, I remember, it was September 2014, I think it was, where I still remember that month so much. Our institution was financially really struggling. What I'm struggling meaning, like, we had hardly any money whatsoever. And we had bills to pay, we had salary to pay, and we had rent to pay. SubhanAllah, obviously that worry was there, fikr was there from myself and from the colleagues. SubhanAllah, one sister, SubhanAllah, phoned and she said that I will donate £500. I will donate £500. SubhanAllah, she donated, and that £500 was enough for us to kind of pay our bills and our costs for that particular month. That sister who donated, I haven't, or we don't know who she is, and we never heard of her after. And it just reminds me of that incident of the Battle of Badr. Battle of Badr, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent angels to help the Muslims to defeat their enemies. And many of the Sahabas were saying that there were so many people during this battle that I never seen them before, I never seen them afterwards. So even for our institution, I'm sure there's many stories like this as well for your own institution, that people, subhanAllah, they donate. You never seen them ever before, and after they donate, you never seen them after. And there can only be one possibility, that these people are angels sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not saying this sister was an angel, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his help comes in different and mysterious ways. SubhanAllah, even like for these stories as well, that people, they look at these stories and think, oh, how can that even be possible? If our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was strong, and if our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our tawakkul and our spirituality was strong, then inshallah these stories would have been of a very common occurrences. Because our tawakkul in Allah is very less, very weak, we don't hear of these stories anymore. When was the last time you heard of these stories? Very rarely. And even when we do hear these stories, we say, oh, it's a fabrication. We say it's a fabrication. Automatically we say it's a fabrication. Automatically we say, oh, he's done Photoshop here. Automatically we say that, they've kind of like done some YouTube video and they made it up. We try to give a logical answer. Sometimes, when the sister there's no such thing as logic. We shouldn't always, for karamats, for miracles, and for ilham, we shouldn't always apply we shouldn't always apply logic. We should just sometimes take the story and say, this is like something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one way to answer that objection. And also number two, there's another simple way of answering that objection. The objection was, how can Prophet ﷺ appear? Well, if you look in the Holy Quran in Surah Yusuf, there's an ayat there. Lawla ar-ra'a burhana rabbihi. Lawla ar-ra'a burhana rabbihi. Everyone knows the story what happened? That when Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam wa hamma biha, he even intended when Zulaykha was trying to seduce him, Allah says he had intended if he had not seen the evidence from his Lord. And according to one opinion, the Burhana Rabbihi is referring to that his father, Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, appeared in front of him. And he told his son, La taqrabu zina, innahu kana fahisha. That do not go near zina, indeed it is an indecency. La taqrabu zina, innahu kana fahisha. Innahu kana fahisha. So that is like another answer that, look, it is possible. Sometimes a prophet or someone can appear, the illumination can appear. So going back to this fifth objection regarding the story. So one answer is that there is a parable which is available in the Quran of Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam appearing in front of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And the second answer to give is that due to the current situation we live in, stories and these things we are not willing to accept. We try to apply logic, but remember, for everything, we don't need to apply logic. We need to place that trust in Allah. Have tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more trust and tawakkul we place in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the doors. And this then takes me on to our final objection, the sixth objection which people have. And that is that some people have said that there are contradictory hadiths in Fadhail Ahmad. They are contradictory hadiths in Fadhail Ahmad. Now, just to make you understand which contradictory hadiths are they referring to. Again, you will see from here the lack of ilm, hence why they said that there are contradictory hadiths of Fadhail Ahmad. Now there are two hadiths in Fadhail Ahmad. One hadith talks about a Sahabi in the name of Hazrat Hanzala radiyallahu ta'ala. And I'm not sure whether you've heard this hadith or not, But it's the hadith is also in Sahih al-Bukhari, where Hazrat Hanzala radiallahu anhu, he comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he says, Nafaqa Hanzala, that I have become a hypocrite. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, why? What have you done? So then Hazrat Hanzala radiallahu anhu says, oh, when I am at home with my family and children, I forget about Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then when I'm in front of you, I remember about hereafter and akhirat and about Allah. But when I'm at home, I just forget about them and I just remember my family. So he comes and he says that I've become a hypocrite. Prophet ﷺ then explained the hadith to him. Then there's another hadith in Fadhail Amal where it says that Hazrat Hamza radiallahu anhu got married and he had relations with his wife, and then the following morning the call of jihad came. So what did he do? He didn't perform Farz Ghusl. He went out, he got martyred. After he got martyred, the Sahabas find that his body has been washed. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained that the reason why his body was washed was because of the angels. The angel descended and washed his body. Hence, Hazrat Hamza radiallahu anhu is also known as Ghasilul Malaika. Now, people have read these two hadiths and they said, look, Hazrat Shaykh has made a mistake in the hadith. The first person, the first Hanzala, the first hadith says, Hazrat Hamza radiallahu anhu having a wife and having children. But in the second one, it says that he didn't have any children. He just spent one night with his wife and then he got martyred. So there's a contradiction. Have you understood? So the first hadith says that Hazrat Hanzala, the Nafaqa Hanzala one, or he had children, he had wife. And the second one says that he didn't have any children, he just spent one night with his wife and then he became martyred. Now the reality is there isn't a contradiction there. There are two separate Hanzalas. There are two separate Hanzala. There are two different Hanzala. The first Hanzala who said Nafaqa Hanzala, his full name is Hanzala ibn Rabi'. Hanzala ibn Rabi'. And the second Hanzala who was martyred, who's known as Ghasilul Malaika, his name was Hanzala ibn Malik. Hanzala ibn Malik. So can you see, brothers, people who have no ilm, no knowledge of hadith, they kind of use the same Hanzala and say, oh yeah, it's the same people, and look, there's contradiction in the hadith. There's no contradiction. It's just people, lack of ilm, lack of knowledge, have confused the two Hanzalas, and they said it's one, and they've said in the first hadith he has children, and the second hadith he doesn't have children, and they're trying to create a contradiction. But the reality is, the name Hanzala radiallahu anhu is very popular the same way as Anas radiallahu anhu is a very popular name. Abdullah radiallahu anhu is very popular. Sometimes you need to know which Abdullah it is, whether it's Abdullah bin Mas'ud, whether it's Abdullah bin Umar, Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu. Again, those who don't study hadith regularly, you get confused. You know, there's so many Abdullahs, isn't there, Brother Sharif? There's so many, so if you don't know which Rawi is which, you could easily get confused and it could kind of confuse you. But if you have studied hadith well, like Hazrat Shaykh has, obviously he's mentioned two hadiths where it's quite clearly indicating to two different Hanzala. You got Hanzala ibn Rabi' and you have Hanzala ibn Malik. They're two different individuals and there aren't any contradictions whatsoever. Now, as today's event's been quite long, I'm just going to quickly recap these 6 objections right at the end, so it's fresh in everybody's mind. And then inshallah I'll give a conclusion, and then inshallah we will end today's dars and workshop. So the first objection was, are there weak hadiths in Fadhail? So the answer which I gave is yes, there are weak hadiths. But I also explained that weak hadiths doesn't mean that we totally disregard them. We can act upon them when it comes to Fadhail. The second objection was that are there fabricated hadith in Fadhail A'mal? The answer is no. And those people who say that, they are making a false accusation. The reason why people may assume there are fabricated hadith in Fadhail A'mal is because, as a sheikh, under each hadith he references. So some muhaddisins like Ibn Jawzi, a bit more stricter when it comes to hadiths, they may have classed some hadiths to be fabricated, but the overwhelming muhaddisins haven't. Third objection was the story of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, that he was able to see people's sins falling from their body. So I explained that this comes under the topic of kashf, and kashf is something which Prophet ﷺ had, Sahabas had, Umar radiallahu anhu had, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had. The fourth objection was regarding stories. Why are the stories in Fadhail A'mal? So as I mentioned, and this is the most important answer, is that Hazrat Shaykh hasn't mentioned these stories out of his own will. Like he didn't make up these stories himself. But rather these stories are taken from Rawdatul Riyaheen and from Imam Ghazali's Ihya al-Ulum. And also at the same time, by the way, they're not fabricated, but even if they were fictional, when it comes to fictional stories, the ulama, the scholars have said that as long as there's a nice meaning to it and the moral of the story is good, then you can use fictional stories. Objection number 5 was regarding that story of that person, illuminated person appearing and then wiping the face, his father's face, and the darkness being removed, and that person was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as I said before, that the reason why people object is due to lack of firmness and stability and tawakkul and trustworthiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words. And also at the same time, you could find a parable of that in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Lawla ar-ra'a burhana rabbihi, and one of the interpretations given by the Mufassirin, that Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam appeared in front of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam when that opportunity manifested itself in Naudbillah committing zina, and Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam said, La taqrabu zina, innahu kana fahisha. And the sixth objection is that there are contradictory hadiths and story in Fadhail A'mal of the Hazrat Hanzala radiallahu anhu. So I already clarified it that there are two different Hanzala. Regarding the first incident, it was Hanzala ibn Rabi radiallahu anhu, and the second incident it was Hanzala ibn Malik, and they are two different Hanzalas. Alhamdulillah, that completes the objections and the jawabat and the answers. A conclusion which I would like to give here is that after listening to today's lecture, after me delivering this lecture, and also, alhamdulillah, the lectures have been on Facebook Live and also other social media platforms as well, I would recommend all the brothers and sisters to kind of also research it yourself. And you will find that after researching, unless you are biased, after you research it, you'll be able to determine that most of the objections which people have, despite the research which has been done, despite the answers, they come under what we call personal attacks, and they come under personal envy. Look, don't get me wrong, there are two types of objections. One is honest objections. You know, people honestly have a question. So alhamdulillah, they raise the objections and answers are given, whether answers which I've given today or other shuyukhs have given in the past, over the past many number of years. Again, many of these researches can be found on YouTube and on many social media platforms. So now when those answers have been given, you then have to be unbiased, you have to be fair, and you have to acknowledge that many of these objections about Fadhail A'mal which people have given are untrue. But unfortunately, you will still find some brothers and sisters that despite answers being given, whether by myself today, whether they will view this video and audio later on YouTube and other platforms, there'll still be some people who will object and say, Sheikh, you've got it wrong, Sheikh is incorrect, the lecturer is incorrect, everything's wrong. So for those types of people, if they are still having objections, despite clarifications, despite the answers, it's unfortunately a sign that they have a personal envy. Personal envy means they have some hasad, jealousy, on two things. Either against Shaykh al-Hadith, Mawlana Muhammad Zakaria Kandil, rahimahullah, and that is always going to be the case. When you become a lecturer or when you're an imam, when you're a teacher, you'll always get two types of people. You'll get some people who love what you're doing, and there'll be some people who are extremely jealous of what you're doing. Even like today's lecture I'm delivering. Alhamdulillah, some people, I'm not saying here, but just people maybe on YouTube, they may like what I said, but there will be some people who will be very jealous and they will be critical in what I've said. That's just the way of life. This is how Allah has made this work. You had Prophet ﷺ, not everyone liked what he said. You had Abu Jahl, Lahab, they hated what Prophet ﷺ said. You had Musa ﷺ, and then you had Fir'aun who hated what Musa ﷺ said. So that's just like a way of life. Don't get too worried about these things. But what I wanted to say is that people who still have objections, they fall under either they have personal hatred for Hazrat Shaykh Muhammad Zakaria Kandili rahimahullah, and number two, another reason, and I think this is one of the main reasons as well, is they have some kind of envy against the Tabligh Jamaat. I think that's the main reason. Some people, they don't like Tabligh Jamaat. I don't want to go into too detail here about Tabligh Jamaat because today's topic is about Fadhail Amal. But some people, they don't like Tabligh Jamaat. Why they don't like it? Again, this is an issue for another day. They don't like perhaps the way they give da'wah. Perhaps they don't like the current issue at the moment. As I'm sure you know, there's like a split in the Tabligh Jamaat. Or they don't like some people, the way they give da'wah. Sometimes they don't like people giving da'wah to Muslims. They like to give da'wah to non-Muslims. So when they see Tabligh Jamaat, who just give da'wah to Muslims and not to non-Muslims, they get angry. It's other reasons. But because they don't like Tabligh Jamaat, that's why they now have something personal against Fadhail Amal. And this is totally incorrect. This is totally incorrect. The two are different. Just say, it's like, say, for example, there is an institution, a Darul Nizami institution. You don't like that institution. Why then are you raising objections on the books they are teaching? Because the books they're teaching is going to be Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Al-Hidayah. It's going to be Fiqhul Muyassar, Nurul Quduri. No, it's like you don't like the institution, but then you're targeting the books they're teaching. So it's the same with the Tabligh Jamaat. I've noticed that there are some brothers and sisters, they don't like Tabligh Jamaat for whatever reason. I'm not going to dwell into that here. But because they don't like Tabligh Jamaat, they now don't like Fadhail Amal. And they start saying Fadhail Amal is all made up stories. It's like you're saying you don't like institution, and then you're trying to say Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim or Al-Hidayah or Nurul or Fiqh Muyassar are all made up. So that is incorrect. That is a very incorrect way to kind of make a judgment. So what I want to say to all the brothers and sisters is that I hope whatever I said today clarifies some of the objections which you yourself may have had, or you yourself may have been firm, but people may have said these things to you, that look, Fadhail Amal has this problem and that problem. So what I said today, you have understood it properly, you have been able to make notes, and it has inshallah clarified a lot of the things. As I said, many of the points of today's lecture can be found on social media later on. So inshallah you can always listen to those videos later and understand it further. I also would request that inshallah you do your own research as well. Listen to other shuyukhs talk, see what they have said, and then inshallah come to your own understanding. And I'm sure your own understanding will also be aligned with the majority of people, and that is that, look, Fadhail Amal, there aren't any fabricated stories, there aren't any fabricated hadiths, there aren't any hocus pocus types of information there. And the main focus of why this book was compiled and written was to kind of like encourage people to do good, especially at the time we live in, 2019. Look, I'm sure you know, brothers and sisters, look at the Muslim Ummah at the moment. Every year it's getting worse. Every year we have problems. You know, every year in the UK, as I was saying in a previous lecture, that, you know, in the UK, every year there's a problem. The current issue we have in the UK is regarding homosexuality, to make it legalized, to make it normal. Not normal amongst non-Muslims, to make it normal amongst Muslims. That's why you hear many stories of Muslims being gays, being homosexuals. They're trying to make that legalized and normalized. So we have so many problems nowadays. So we need to be a bit more gentle in our approach. We need to be a bit more nicer and calmer in our approach. And subhanAllah, Fadhail A'mal, or the series of Fadhail which Sheikh has compiled, whether it's Fadhail Quran, Fadhail Ramadan is coming up, Fadhail Sadaqat and Zakat. Alhamdulillah, encourages people to be generous, encourages people to change their lives. Yes, when they change their lives and they come onto the path, then yes, you could tell them a bit more about Aqidah, tell them a bit more about, you know, tafsir of the Quran and Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a more technical way. That, inshallah, is only possible when you get them on this path. And inshallah, using the books of Fadhail A'mal and Fadhail Quran and Fadhail Ramadan, inshallah, enables the brothers and sisters as a whole and in large masses to come near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen. Once again, inshallah, I'll take this opportunity to thank all the brothers, inshallah, Brother Sharif as well,